It sounds like the ultimate financial win. No more monthly payments. No more debt hanging over your head. You own your home outright and walk into retirement free and clear. For decades, this has been the dream. Pay off the house, then retire. In that exact order. The problem is, for most people, chasing that dream is quietly costing them far more than they ever realize. And by the time they figure that out, the damage is already done. Here's the thing nobody tells you. When you send extra money toward your mortgage, that money doesn't vanish into thin air. It converts into home equity. And home equity has one very specific characteristic that almost always gets overlooked. It earns you exactly zero return while it sits there. Your house doesn't grow faster because you own more of it. The market value moves the same whether you owe $200,000 on it or nothing at all. What changes is your liquidity, your flexibility, your ability to respond when life doesn't cooperate with your plan. And in retirement, life almost never goes entirely according to plan. Let's start with the math, because that's where the real story lives. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate over recent years has hovered between 6% and 7%. That sounds high enough to justify paying it off aggressively. But here's the comparison most people never actually make. The S&P 500 has delivered an average annual return of roughly 10% over long historical periods. Even adjusting conservatively for inflation, that long-run figure sits around 7%. So the question isn't just, do I want to be debt-free? The real question is locking money into my house at zero return smarter than keeping it invested where it can compound? For many households, especially those who locked in lower rates during 2020 and 2021 when rates briefly fell below 3%, the math is strikingly one-sided. Paying off a 3% mortgage to avoid 3% interest, while pulling that money out of a market that historically returns 7% to 10% annually, is not a financial victory. It's an opportunity cost that compounds quietly and painfully for years. But the math alone isn't even the biggest issue. The bigger trap is liquidity. And this is the part that catches people completely off guard when they need it most. When you funnel every available dollar into paying down your mortgage, you are converting liquid assets into illiquid ones. Cash that was flexible and accessible becomes equity that is permanently locked inside your walls. You cannot spend equity. You cannot use it to cover a sudden medical expense. You cannot tap it quickly if a major home repair hits at the worst possible moment, or if your income drops unexpectedly, or if you need to support a family member in a crisis. Yes, you can take out a home equity line of credit. But here's the catch most people discover too late. Once you're retired with limited income on paper, qualifying for new credit becomes significantly harder. Lenders evaluate your income stream, and a retirement income often looks far smaller than what you earned while working. The very moment your equity feels most valuable to you is often the exact moment it becomes hardest to actually access. This situation even has a name: being house rich and cash poor. And it is one of the most common and least discussed retirement traps in America today. Now let's put some actual numbers behind this. Say you're 55 years old with $200,000 remaining on your mortgage and $300,000 in a retirement account. You have an extra $100,000 in available savings. The emotionally satisfying move is to send that $100,000 toward the mortgage. Get closer to owning it outright. Shrink the debt. Sleep a little better. But consider the alternative. You keep that $100,000 invested. At a 7% average annual return, it grows to roughly $197,000 in 10 years. Close to $270,000 in 15. Meanwhile, your mortgage payment continues at its fixed rate, which is actually declining in real purchasing value every single year because of inflation. The dollar you send your lender in 2035 is worth less than the dollar you would have sent today. Inflation is, counterintuitively, working in your favor when you carry a fixed-rate mortgage. Your payment stays the same in nominal terms, while everything around it gets more expensive. That fixed obligation becomes genuinely cheaper in real terms with every passing year. And this is where retirement account strategy creates another hidden problem. Many people accelerate mortgage payoff in their late 50s and early 60s by pulling from retirement accounts early. That creates two compounding problems at once. First, withdrawals from a 401k before age 59 trigger a 10% penalty on top of ordinary income taxes. Second, those dollars stop compounding the moment they leave the account. You're not just paying down the mortgage. You're paying taxes, paying a penalty, and permanently removing money from the most powerful growth engine you have. Schwab, Vanguard, and T. Rowe Price have all noted in their retirement research that depleting investment accounts to eliminate low-rate mortgage debt is among the most financially costly decisions households make in the decade leading up to retirement. So who should actually consider paying off their mortgage before retiring? Context always matters. If your mortgage rate sits above 6.5% or 7%, the math shifts meaningfully. At that level, the guaranteed return of eliminating that interest starts competing more seriously with expected market returns. If your retirement accounts are already fully funded and on solid trajectory, and you have a substantial emergency fund completely separate from any payoff money, then clearing the mortgage becomes a far more reasonable move. And if the psychological weight of carrying debt into retirement creates genuine anxiety that would affect your judgment and quality of life, that factor carries real financial value too. But for the majority of households who are still building retirement savings, who secured lower mortgage rates in recent years, and who would be trading liquid invested assets for locked liquid equity, the aggressive mortgage payoff strategy is a trap wearing the costume of financial responsibility. The feeling of being debt-free is powerful. It's real, and it matters deeply to people. But feelings and financial outcomes are not always the same thing. And in retirement, outcomes are what actually pay the bills. The smarter framework isn't just, should I pay off my house? It's, what does my overall financial picture actually need right now? Sometimes the answer is more liquidity. Sometimes it's more retirement contributions. Sometimes it's simply letting the mortgage run and consistently investing the difference. The right answer depends entirely on your rate, your savings balance, your timeline, and your tax situation. What it almost never depends on is the emotional satisfaction of burning the mortgage paperwork. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you had $100,000 available today, would you lock it into your walls? Or let it keep working for you?